Okay, so you hear the name Babe Ruth, and what do you think of? The Sultan of Swat, right? The great Bambino, the legendary home run king. But what if I told you the story you think you know is only like half of it? The real story, the one buried under this mountain of home run records, is way more remarkable.
So let me start with a question for you, and I want you to forget all about hitting for just a second. Who was the pitcher so utterly dominant that he set a World Series record for consecutive scoreless innings that wouldn't be broken for over 4 decades? A performance that would get anybody else into the Hall of Fame, no questions asked.
Well, the answer, and this is what's so wild, is the very same guy we know as the greatest hitter of all time, George Herman Babe Ruth. And that right there, that's the key to understanding his real genius. This guy didn't just have one legendary career, he basically had 2.
To really get the legend, we gotta go back to the beginning. And not in the batter's box. No, we have to start on the pitcher's mound. And his journey to get there was, well, it was anything but ordinary.
What's just nuts is how fast it all happened. At just 7 years old, this kid gets sent to a reformatory. His own parents labeled him incorrigible. And it's there he finds baseball. And then, boom. Just 12 years later, he's in the majors playing for the Boston Red Sox. A troubled kid who found his one escape, and it just so happened he was one of the best in the entire world at it.
And listen, you gotta understand, he wasn't just some pretty good pitcher. He was an elite, dominant ace. This number right here proves it. 29 2/3, almost 30 straight innings in the World Series without giving up a single run. I mean, to put that in perspective, that's like pitching 3 complete game shutouts back to back to back on the biggest stage in all of sports. A record like that, that's Hall of Fame stuff right there. But a single business deal was about to change everything. And this brings us to probably the single most infamous deal in the history of sports. A trade that would launch a dynasty for one city and, well, slap an 86-year curse on another. So why on earth would a team trade a player like this? It all came down to cash. The owner of the Red Sox, a guy named Harry Frazee, he was a theater producer, and he needed money to fund his Broadway shows. So in December of 1919, what does he do? He sells his superstar pitcher, who by the way was also the league's home run champ, to the rival New York Yankees for $100 grand. And the fallout from this one decision? It was just staggering. Look at this. Before the trade, Boston was a powerhouse. 5 championships. The Yankees? 0. Nothing. In the 86 years that followed, it's a complete 180. Boston wins zilch. The Yankees? Oh, they just built an empire, winning 26 titles. One single transaction created 2 totally opposite destinies. This epic downfall, it became a legend in itself. They called it the Curse of the Bambino. For generations, fans in Boston truly believed their team was doomed, all because they sold off the greatest player who ever lived. It became a piece of American sports folklore, for real. So with that trade, Ruth's transformation was pretty much complete. See, the Yankees didn't really care about his pitching arm. They wanted that bat full-time. And in New York, he didn't just play the game, he totally reinvented it. He single-handedly kicked off what we now call the live ball era. And the impact was immediate, and honestly, almost unbelievable. In his very first year as a Yankee, Ruth smacks 54 home runs. Now keep in mind, he'd set the record the year before with 29. He didn't just break his own record, he practically doubled it. His power was so game-changing that he, one guy, hit more home runs than almost every other entire team in the league. The absolute peak of his power came in 1927. He was part of that legendary Murderers Row lineup. And the whole country was just glued to the home run chase between him and his teammate, Lou Gehrig. Gehrig had an amazing season, hitting 47 homers. But Ruth did the unthinkable. He finished the year with a new record, 60 home runs, a number that would be the benchmark for decades to come. His career numbers are just mind-blowing. 714 home runs. He led the entire league in homers 12 different times. And maybe the most impressive stat of all, a career slugging percentage of .690. That's the highest in the history of Major League Baseball. It's a measure of pure power, and nobody ever has been better. But, with Babe Ruth, the numbers were only part of the story. His whole larger-than-life personality, his theatrical style, it turned him from a sports hero into a real American myth. And nothing captures that better than the legend of the called shot. All right, so the scene is Game 3 of the 1932 World Series in Chicago. The Cubs players, the fans, they're just giving it to Ruth, heckling him like crazy. So in the 5th inning, he steps up to the plate, and he makes this gesture. But what did it mean? Did he really point to the center field bleachers? Did he actually call his shot?
Well, the guy on the mound, Cubs pitcher Charlie Root, he denied it for the rest of his life. He always said Ruth was just holding up 2 fingers, showing the crowd he had 2 strikes on him, but still had 1 left. Just some trash talk, you know? An act of defiance, not some kind of prophecy.
But the legend tells a different story. This account from the Hall of Fame kind of captures that mythic version. Ruth points, and then on the very next pitch, he crushes a home run deep into the stands, right where he supposedly pointed. It's just one of the most iconic, unbelievable moments in sports history.
So what's the truth? Well, we'll probably never know for sure. And you know what? That's kind of the whole point. That's what makes the story so great. Ruth himself was always a little vague about it. Sometimes he'd confirm the legend, other times he'd play it down. He knew that the mystery was way more powerful than the facts. He let the story grow into this legend that just perfectly captured who he was. His impact is just undeniable. I mean, he was one of the first guys ever voted into the Hall of Fame. He turned the Yankees into a dynasty. He completely changed how the game of baseball was played. And he basically created the blueprint for the modern sports celebrity, a guy who was bigger than the game itself.
And even decades after he was gone, his legacy is just unmatched. In 1999, the Associated Press had to name its athlete of the century. And who did they pick? Babe Ruth, ahead of icons from every other sport you can think of, including Michael Jordan. That just tells you everything you need to know about his monumental, lasting place in our culture. Which, brings us right back to where we started. So I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. What was his true masterpiece? Was it the 714 home runs? Was it reinventing the art of hitting? Or was it the fact that he was already on a Hall of Fame track as a pitcher, and he gave all that up to become something even greater? That decision, that incredible pivot from one kind of greatness to another, that might just be the most legendary thing he ever did.
Well, the good Lord must have been with him.